Are you looking for new books to read? Do you like finding a new special author? Are you tired of the same old books from the same old authors? Well then, welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where you can hear from fantastic new authors. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have worked hard to write great new books. Hear about their book and why you should check it out. So sit back and listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
Hey, welcome to episode 49 of Discovered Wordsmiths. Today I have JD Rempel. She is a children and middle grade author. She's written a fairy tale and a book about her life in summer camp, a fantasized version. So if you have some kids, if you're looking for some good books to read, check out JD's books. There are links in the show notes. And if you haven't told anyone about the website, about the podcast, please tell people about the podcast. I would like these authors to get out there, to get known. That's what they all want. They want their books to be read. And that's why I do this. So if you've listened to the podcast, a couple episodes, even just one episode, tell others about it. Point them to the website. Let them find authors and books that they would enjoy. And also, next episode is episode 50, which is a big, nice, round celebratory number. So I've got a few special episodes coming up for 50 and beyond. So you want to check those out. Again, check out the authors, check out the website, see what other books are out there. And if you've listened to us, please give us a rating, give us a review. It'll help us be found by others to find these authors and their new books. So here's JD. Well, JD, welcome to today's episode of Discovered Wordsmiths. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Great. I'm glad to have you on. Let's before we talk about your books, tell us a little bit about you, what you like to do outside of writing, a little bit about where you live, things like that.
Okay. Well, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I've lived in Northern California my whole life.
Nice.
I've been married for 28 years. We don't have any children except a turtle.
Wow. How long have you had the turtle?
We've had, his name's Applesauce, and we've had him for about 3 years.
Oh, okay.
I found him in my pool. So that's a little story in itself, but he was meant for me.
Nice. Good.
So what was your other question?
So what are some things you like to do outside of writing, other hobbies or things?
I'm going to be honest here and say I watch a lot of TV. I really like watching, I'm an Anglophile, and so I just love anything British. So if I can, they have like a lot of streaming channels for the British shows, and so that's usually what I'm watching.
So do you have a BritBox subscription? I've
been trying to write more, so I let my BritBox go for a little while, and I'll reward myself after my book's done. Get it back. And
so what's your favorite?
Too. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
and Acorn too.
Yeah. So what's your favorite British show?
Well, they don't make it anymore, but I like watching reruns is Inspector Lewis. Okay. And I also really like Vera. And
I haven't heard of that one.
Oh, Vera is really good. It's I'm trying to remember who the author is though, because she writes all the books and then they made it into a TV series. She also has another one called Shetland, and they're very good. What I like about Vera is she's a lot like she's like a woman Columbo.
Nice. Yeah, I always love Columbo.
Yeah, so she's that she's an older lady, but she's really smart. And she calls everybody like love or pet. So it's kind of cute.
Nice. Okay, so what made you finally want to start writing?
I'd have to say it was, for some reason, I just got this story in my head. We were going through something in our family, and I just wanted my nephew to know how much he was loved. So I wanted to write a story about how much he was loved. I actually haven't published that book, but I'm hoping to someday.
Okay.
But that was the beginning of everything for me, was just, you know, just wanting to, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's fine. Um, and so you wrote, was that the first book you wrote, the one you wanted to be for your nephew?
Yeah, I wrote it right away, but I'm still editing it. It's not, I don't think it's right yet. So I'm still editing that. And I think a lot of times when I'm going through hard stuff, it's like I get a new story that that helps me. I mean, I had some other personal stuff going on, and I felt like God gave me this story, and I was just like, I could get some healing out of it. And that one's not finished either. I think it's because both of them are so personal.
Right.
But
That's and I get that too. The shiny squirrel that you want to jump and I got this great idea.
yeah.
Okay, so your first two books. Tell us what they are called, what they're about, and you said they're not published yet, but you're working on that.
No, those are the ideas that I was just talking about.
Oh, okay.
The ones that anyways, no, I have two that are published.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay, so tell us what those two are about.
okay. The first one is a children's book fairy tale. So that one's called Marigold and the Snoring King. And it's about a little orphan who tries to help a king stop snoring. And everybody in the kingdom wants to try to stop the king snoring, but they won't let her in to see him to help. But everybody else tries to help, and they just make it worse. That
Okay,
one I'm pretty proud of because I won honorable mention in the 2020 Writer's Digest self-published book awards
wow,
for,
nice. Yeah, that is
yeah.
pretty. That was actually the third book you wrote. Is that the correct order?
Well, I think it's one of my first because it's the first I finished.
Okay.
I am a perfectionist, so it takes me a long time to really finish a book. I just have a very weird way of writing. So I'm very, well, one of my friends calls me a writer snob. So I kind of like to do everything as perfect as possible.
Got it. And is it a picture book for
Yes.
young kids? Did you do the pictures yourself, or did you get somebody to do those?
I found a wonderful illustrator. Her name's Kim Spinagle. She has beautiful work. And when I saw her work, I was just like, it was just like, oh, this is it. This is the one.
Right.
And then when she read my book, she loved my book. She was just like, she said she got it through a friend. And so she was just praying that I would ask her to illustrate it because she loved the book so much. And
Cool.
so when I contacted her, she was like, I was praying you would contact me. So I was
Wow.
really excited.
So it's kind of meant to happen. That's great.
Yeah, it was. And she did a wonderful job. It's just gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's so she just really brought it to life. She really did.
And what was the second book?
It's called Melanie on the Move, and it's a Christian middle grade contemporary novel.
Okay.
So, and that I should say Marigold was self-published. Melanie's traditionally published through Ambassador International.
All right. So, well, tell us about the second book a little bit.
It's about a girl who lives in the Bay Area, and all of a sudden, her parents announced that they're going to move, and she's still going to live in California, but it's in this really small town that she doesn't really remember because they have a cabin there, so they live in the cabin. She really doesn't remember it, and she loves to swim. She's a swimmer. She just loves to swim, and now she's not going to have a pool, and it's just like her whole world unravels, and everything seems to be going wrong. And through circumstances, her dad can't live with them, and her sister goes somewhere else, and it's just her whole life just goes up in chaos. And she makes a new friend who invites her to church. And then she gets a whole bunch of new friends and all these wonderful things starts to happen to her. It's more about how God can use our circumstances to draw us to him, and he will do beautiful things in our lives.
Was the main goal to be something to help kids, or did it come out just that way after you started writing the story?
I really wanted, with today's kids and stuff, I always felt like they don't get, I feel like when I grew up in the 80s, how idyllic it was and how fun life seemed to be back then and how innocent life was back then. So I kind of wanted to have that for today's readers for the middle grade, because I just remember how tough, even though I had a wonderful life growing up, those junior high years are just so tough on some kids.
Yeah,
And
yeah, really are.
yeah. And so I just wanted something that really showed, kids what life really is without all those distractions and stuff. This is what life is. God wants to have a relationship with you. You can have friends. You can, it's just, I just wanted something that would give them that today. And it also helps because the area where the book is focused on is I used to go up to family camp every year with my parents at this place called Alliance Redwoods. And so the whole book series is around that area. And actually, book 2, which I'm working on, is Melanie at Camp Redwoods, is at the Redwoods that I grew up at. So it's just kind of giving, it's nice because it's giving me the memories that I had and the fun times that I had and kind of sharing them with other people and just having them experience it too.
Nice. Well, that's always a good goal, and I like the helping kids. I'm trying to do some of the same types of things with my books, same target audience.
Oh yeah, they really need it. That's the time when that's when I started reading a lot. That's where I felt like I could find friends who would accept me for who I was. I could go on adventures. Yeah, it's
Right.
just the right age to start reading and finding books that they love so much.
You mentioned that you traditionally published one and you self-published the other. Why did you do that, and how did you get the book published with Ambassador Press?
I decided with Marigold and the Snoring King. I mean, nobody does fairy tales anymore. It's an original fairy tale. I Everybody does like retellings of fairy tales. You're not seeing a lot of fairy tales, or or Disney's doing the fairy tales. It's like they're not going to want to do my fairy tale, and I'm fine with that. I don't want them to. I wanted to do my own. But I just didn't think that I would find everybody I like sent it out to and stuff. It's like they like it, but they didn't know where they could put it. Who's the audience, and it was just very difficult for that one. And so that's why I just decided, hey, I'm going to self-publish this one. And I actually work with I wouldn't call them, I guess some people would call them a vanity press, but they were wonderful to work with. They were great. I didn't feel like I was getting taken advantage of. And that is Halo Publishing International. And
Okay.
they were just great to work with. I mean, what I had to pay was the stuff that you'd have to pay anyway for publishing your book. And they were actually really great because they loved the book too. And so they've been promoting it as well.
Nice. So you've had a pretty good experience, because I know I hear a lot of people that they don't have a great experience, or they're, like you said, trying to rip you off, but you didn't have any of that.
No. It's just from research. I mean, my illustrator is the one who actually said you should work with Halo. They're wonderful. And that one was how I got into Halo too, was just another God story, because it was really funny. That one was really funny too. So I'll share it if you'd like.
Yeah, please go ahead.
But it was funny because I called the number, and the recording wasn't like when it went to the straight to recording. And it was sounded all crackly, and I was like, ooh, I don't know if I'm going to go with these people or not, because I just hung up. I didn't leave a message. And then right away, the number called me back, and I was just like thinking, oh, it's just, it's just the answering thing calling me back accidentally, whatever. I'll just answer and hang up. But it was actually like the lady who ran it was calling me back because she saw that my number, and she just called me back. And so I just started talking to her, and I told her, and she got so excited. And she goes, I have never, ever called somebody back who didn't leave a message. She goes, I've never done that before.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have had some guidance, it seems, with your illustrator and publisher.
Yes. You did ask about Melanie on the Move. I put it in to a contest, and I won the contest. So I
Great.
put it into those. Have you heard of Pitch Wars on
Yeah.
Twitter?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember who was doing. Oh, it wasn't like a Pitch Wars thing. It was a Christian one. And so I just did it that day for that. And one of the editors from Ambassador said, send it to me. So I did. So
Great.
I sent it to her, and that's what happened.
So sometimes it does pay to do those types of things. I know there's debate on that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think too, I was thinking too with contests, because a lot of people try not to do contests or whatever. I was like thinking, being able to say, because I don't know how great my pitch was, but being able to say it won this, or you can say it placed here, even if it's a small one. This one was the one I won was the Oregon Christian Writers one for the category for middle grade.
Well, congrats on that.
Thank you.
So what's the feedback you're getting from readers on your books?
Well, it's been all positive. Most of them have actually all my reviews have been 5 stars.
Nice.
Yeah. And they're not friends. They're not all friends. It's hard. With the characters are so sweet. I feel like they're very sweet, that it's kind of hard to not like the characters. That's how I think of them too. I don't think of them as my characters. I just feel like I wrote their stories. Mm-hmm. So I'm not, it's like I'm proud of them, but proud of them because I feel like they're, it's almost like they're my children. And I'm just like, oh, they're the ones who did all this stuff. I always, it's like, I don't remember that, the world is so real to me that I'm like, oh, that really happened.
I always liken it to, there was an old thing, I believe it was Michelangelo, that said, he didn't carve the statue. It was always in the rock. He just took away the parts that didn't belong or something like that. And I kind of feel sometimes writing, I'm not thinking up a story, but I'm like looking through to another world and just putting down on paper what I see. That's kind of what it feels like.
I feel the same way. So whenever someone doesn't, I'm trying to think. I have had some negative critiques, which I know we're going to talk about later about the stories, but I just don't understand, because I'm like, how could you not like that child? The book, it's not that, so, but usually on critiques, it's usually about my part in the writing. So
yeah, we'll get into critiques more. I'm excited about that. Okay, so your books, for fun, if you had a choice, what would you rather see them made into, a movie or a TV show?
I think Marigold would be great as a movie, and I think Melanie would be great as a TV show.
Do you think animated or live action?
I think Melanie would be great at live action. It'd be wonderful, because I mean, that place is really there. Well, not everything, but like the camp area. Mm-hmm. And the second book, especially, there are so many characters. She makes you get introduced to some of the characters in the first book. There's just so many characters. It really has an ensemble cast, so it would make a great TV show.
All right. So your books, they're available online. Did you choose to do print versions also?
Yeah, they're all available hardback. Well, Melanie's not in hardback. Marigold, the self-published Marigold and the Snoring King is available in hardback,
Because it's a
paperback,
picture book.
yeah, ebook. And I actually just a couple months ago I did the narration for Marigold, and it's also an audiobook with sound effects. The sound effects I love the sound effects.
Now, did you put those in and do that, or did you have someone do that?
Oh, I hired someone. It's Nathan James Norman from Untold Productions, and he did
Okay.
a great job.
So are you releasing it as an audio book also then?
It just released like 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. It came
Okay.
out.
Is that available on Audible, or where can people find that?
Yep, Audible, Chirp. Some libraries have been purchasing it, and I was surprised. I was like, wow, there's a library in Tennessee who has my books. It has the audiobook. That's okay, cool.
Yeah, and I've always encouraged people, especially with kids' books, take your kids to the library, get some books out. I still go to the library a lot. And in fact, even before the pandemic, I would get on the website for the library and browse and find what I want and have it delivered and go pick it up. But I know my kids have always loved to go to the library and spend time there browsing around and finding things. My son, heck, he would check out 50 books at a time sometimes.
Yeah, I was like that too. I actually have, since you're talking about libraries, I actually have on my Facebook page and my website. Well, actually, it's on my website, I should say, that I have it's called Give a Book. And I will give a book to a library if you win my contest. And all you have to do is enter. And I just draw names every month. And if your name's drawn, then I will give that book to a library of your choice, whether it's school or public library, and say your name as the donor.
Nice. And is that just on your website, or how are you advertising that?
I've been trying to advertise it on Facebook, but last year I gave away 12 books. I wanted to keep doing it. So I haven't had anybody sign up. So it's open. So it's more likely to win if someone signs up.
That's interesting, because I tried something similar and I got one person to respond. But when I sent them an email asking for more info, I never heard back. So I think we had kind of the same idea. It's just trying to get people to actually, there's a lot of noise out there with so many things. People may think it's some sort of scam, or who knows, they may just get covered up. But I think that's interesting. We thought the same idea, trying to get the book out there for kids.
Oh yeah. That's where I want it. I mean, I want them to read it. What's use is it, because I actually, I bought some of my own, and those I'm the only one who can sell the hardback. So I send out the hardbacks to those.
And that's great. I don't know if you guys have them there, but we have these little library dotted around, and it's just in various places. Like at Kent, they have one by the one park, and it's this little box sitting next to the sidewalk. And people put books in there, and you could take books out. And I've put my book in there several times to get it out. And I know I don't know who gets it, and it's something I'm giving away, but I'm obviously hoping to hear from people, if they liked it, what they thought, things like that.
Oh yeah. I've actually considered putting one in front of my house because I just love reading so much.
That's a great idea.
I have room for it, but I'm like, okay, one thing at a time, one project at a time.
Right. Okay. So what's your plans for your next books? I know you said you have a couple you've written, you're still working on. Do you have anything planned for the next one you're going to release?
Yeah, I am working. Well, I'm doing two things right now is that I am working on the audiobook for Melanie on the Move because I'm the narrator for that one. So I'm working on that. And also, I am working on the second book in that series. It's actually called the NorCal Girls series, and it's the Melanie at Camp Redwoods. And I'm working on that one. And I'm kind of one of these people who like to have a lot of projects. I do actually write for adult, young adult, and adult. So, but those are all on the back burner for now. I'm doing one just a tiny bit just to, I give so much of myself into the Melanie one that sometimes I need to have a break and just kind of write and just write crazy and not do a, to do a rough draft rather than really focusing on a final draft. So that one I do for fun a little bit.
That's always good. It's a good shift and change, keep you going so you don't get burnt out.
Yeah. I give it to myself as a reward too. Did you write
Right.
as much as you were supposed to? Well, then you can have some fun.
Right. Now, speaking of, write as much as you want to. When you were writing the picture book, and if you do write any more picture books, I know some people would say, well, heck, there's only 100 words in that whole book anyway. Do you find writing a kid's picture book to be, how do you find it different than writing the middle grade book?
I think the younger they are, the more I think it's the harder that it is to write. I edited Marigold and the Snoring King probably over 100 times because you want to get kids. It's just such a limited amount of words. You have to have, it's like poetry. You have to have, you're giving this imagery and you want to be as precise as possible to the kids. And I find the same thing with Melanie. I admit that some of my descriptions get more of how I usually write. I really write kind of flowery. So I do a little bit of that on Melanie, but usually I try just to be very precise as well in things. But writing a picture book is, I think it's the hardest thing to write. It's
not as easy as some people would think.
Yeah. Well, you also have to have, it really is poetry because when a lot of people are reading these books out loud and you want to have a kind of rhythm to the story as well, it really is kind of like kids' poetry, except
Right.
you're not rhyming.
Very, very concise.
Yeah.
That's probably why Stephen King hasn't written any picture books.
Yeah. He's very descriptive. So,
yeah. Okay, JD, let me ask you, what are some of your favorite books and authors that you've read throughout your life that you like?
Well, it's so hard. I write like I read. I just love multiple genres. So I am just like reading like I think the only thing I don't read is horror. And I'm actually trying to like I have I know actually a few horror writers and I'm trying to read their books to just see the difference. But my favorite it's got to be Pride and Prejudice with Jane Austen.
Nice.
Yeah, I just love her characters. Her characters are just so multifaceted. They're just, and it's always like the time you really understand the time and what they were going through. I like that historical part of understanding that.
There's probably a good reason that it's studied in schools.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But I also, when I was a kid, I really loved, my first adult books that I started reading were actually romance was Jeanette Oak and the Love Comes Softly series. I read those. I started reading those when I was a kid, and that started me on regular, older stuff. And then I also I loved Stephen R. Lawhead. Okay. So he's fantasy, Christian fantasy. And I really like reading a lot of fantasy too. I do write fantasy as well. I write science fiction and fantasy too. But
Right.
so,
So you mentioned horror, and knowing that you write kids and middle grade books. Have you tried going back and reading any Goosebumps?
I have, it's probably going to be put on my to be read list because you get into I think you've probably run into this too, is that you end up meeting a lot of other authors. And so you meet them, you like them, you're like, oh, I'm going to like their book. So you buy their book and then you're just like, you've got this, to be read pile that's like, 100 books
Right.
or like you'll buy their ebook. And so I have 50 ebooks that I need to read.
Right. Yeah, I do. I did when the Goosebumps was something I went and grabbed a couple of from my kids and read when I was working on writing to get the feel and the what made these popular and why do people like them. And there's plentiful. You can probably find several at a used bookstore, and they're like 25,000 words, so they're almost like one of Patterson's book shots.
Well, I think didn't they make one of them into a movie with
Several.
So yeah, I think I saw the one with Jack Black. I really enjoyed that one. I'm trying to remember which one that was.
I think it was just the newer one, the Goosebumps.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was. So do you also have there in San Francisco where you live? Do you have a favorite bookstore that you like to go to?
I wish I could say that I do. It's just I used to when I went to the bookstore, I always went to Christian bookstores. And those are gone. They're just gone now.
Yeah, we unfortunately are losing bookstores.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a Barnes and Noble close to our house, but I should go in there. My husband says, you got to go in there and show me your book. And I'm like, yeah, I was like, they have it online. They already sell my book. So I have just a hard time putting myself out there. I think I need to, but I do. You go into a bookstore, it's like, oh, I want to buy everything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I have that same problem.
So it's easier sometimes to buy online because it's just like, well, at least I know that usually I'll have a gift card or something. I'm like, okay, I only can spend my gift card.
Right. All right. Well, one last question before we go, JD. Tell everybody that's listening why they should get your book and read your book.
I think if they enjoy that wholesome, like what I was talking about before, just stories that if you're going to get it for your kid, it's these stories that you grew up with. These ones that have that, it's not like old fashioned kind of thing, but just the clean when you're looking at more problems that have to do with you as a person. Like the kids are facing how to make friends, instead of all the social and political stuff going on, it's more of showing the kids about having a life, what life is like about them, and just giving them options and understanding their relationship to the world and just how they fit in. And to me, whenever I read my books and look at them, it just reminds me of yesteryear and how I used to feel. And I just want that innocence for them. I think they would enjoy it. And I have to admit that Marigold and the Snoring King is pretty funny. So if you want, especially with the sound effects, those are pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The books sound great, and I love talking to other authors writing for kids. So we're going to, for everyone listening, we're going to pause here for a minute, and then we'll be back with the second half, more author type talk. JD, it was great talking to you. Thanks for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.